Good evening, everyone. This video is going to be a trading review and support session for February the 8th, 2023. And so let's start the day. Let's kind of start to look at what we were looking at when the market first opened. And we weren't expecting a big range day. It did kind of pick up with some of the Fed discussions when we first were looking at it the daily this morning. It was about here, right? It was a little bit red, but it hadn't gone down just yet. And so we were waiting for some Feds to be talking, and they kind of talked, through the day. Didn't really say anything new, but the general feeling was this was a little bit too high, right? The previous days, maybe this previous day's bullish area is too high. So many of the Feds and even some CEOs of some major banks were kind of warning that, look, interest rates are going to be high for a while and may need to remain high for a while to get inflation under control. So they didn't necessarily buy it, but they kept saying it over and over and over again. Different Feds, different bank CEOs. So they finally kind of got the message and brought the market down some. So here's the open, and so I had noticed previously, and this is a good explanation for why I held for a little bit long on the long trade that I did, and that was because the Globex low area, back then had held a couple of times, right? Doesn't mean it's going to continue to hold, but I had that as part of my work, going through in the morning. So, but this was the first trade, right there, right, and it was a short trade, and then I added to it, but I actually ended up adding to it, not really too much difference from the original entry point. So I had two, and so got out of both of them for a total of about a point and a half. I didn't try to stretch it too much, but I got about a point and a half on that. And this is the trade that looked like it was going to try to break. It did break, that little pivot, and it broke that previous 1 minute high and breaking this minute high. So I thought it might go for a little bit, but it didn't. But I was kind of waiting for it to see what it's going to do down here. I didn't want to, reverse down here and have it come back up on me. So I held it. So after it did, it kind of confirmed what I was thinking, right? It might do, right? It was bouncing off of the Globex low and so I added to it here, right? It came back down one more time and added to it here. And one of the reasons I added to it again, I said I didn't want to challenge this area too much. I didn't know how much it was going to be. So anyway, I got out prior to it hitting, I believe, let's see, my last one was exited right at that 2x20 and the volume point of control area. So that turned out to be okay, even though I had to have 3 units. And then a little bit late on this trade. I didn't get in until here, right? I mean, getting in a little bit earlier would have been much better, and I would have been out with a full point. As it was, I took a couple of ticks of profit in this area. It ended up, I think would have delivered the whole thing, but I did take a couple of ticks worth of profit only, but it did show me that there was a little bit of strength there. So I ended up, again, I think I was a little bit late on this trade. Could have been a little bit better. So, but it was kind of going through. Had an expansion over here, and it's kind of watching us. A little bit nervous about the daily bias and the value high, but I took it anyway and was out there. So the long side was working initially, anyway, and then nothing for a while. And I was up okay. And now this is coffee break time, so I wasn't paying attention, and I was pouring coffee. May have even gotten up. I think I even got up out of my chair, and I came back and saw this was a pretty aggressive move, right? So A short anywhere in here would have been better. So I took a pretty late short here and got out prior to the volume point of control. So I had a little bit of trade envy for not being in front of the computer in here. So I took one that's a little bit more aggressive. And then I was feeling okay. This is going into 7 o'clock, so I didn't necessarily want to test the push time frame. So I let this go. I was already up quite a bit, or reasonably. Let's see. It looks like I tried something and then I reversed. I tried this 2x200 area, right? A little bit after 7. I waited after 7:03. It looks like it's going to go. It wasn't perfect alignment because it was just crossing the fast flex, and but the EMA was still going a little bit down. It was growing to 2x200, but it had already broken it over here, so I didn't know that they were going to hold on to it so well. So it just wouldn't break. Tried it, and so I was even going to go for lower profits, and then they started selling. Right, so I reversed in a reasonable time frame. Right, I wanted to see if the this pivot area and the volume point of control was going to hold it, and it didn't. So I reversed around here. Right, I added to it here, and I was out around the open, and I think I just made my gross profit back, and cost me some commission, so I lost a little bit on the net basis on that trade. And then here's one that's a little bit too aggressive. So this, I said this was kind of a revenge trade because it didn't make any money on this last one. So this one was a little bit too aggressive. It's kind of a revenge trade, trying to get the money back, but it's already in the EMA band, right? Heading towards this double bottom. Now it could have come down here, and the AVR was still kind of negative, but it didn't. So it came back then, and then I saw it hit here on the volume point of control, right? And when I entered it, it was coming to be a down bar, but it bounced up again real quick. So the second unit was entered here. Thought it showed signs that the volume point of control was going to hold, but it didn't. Came back up to the EMA, coming back down. So I added, this is the second trade I had 3 units on. Added another one here, and exited primarily here, right before the open again. But I let 1 unit run. I was talking about this. I let 1 unit run for an extra point down in here. So this kind of added to some profits with some of the inefficiency. So wasn't real efficient today, but it was a profitable day anyway. And at that point, I'm up 9. So I actually said, well, I'm probably done trading. And so I didn't influence you guys. I mean, so there was this would have been an okay trade. I was just trying not to trade. And then market was moving a little bit more than I thought it was going to be. I did take a couple of other trades. Let me see if I can find them. This was took it a little bit late, right? But had a lot of selling. Everything's in alignment here. So I did take this one, and that put me up 10. And I took one more, and I wasn't staring at the market this whole time. I just happened to be around. Let's see, where is it? I see my note there. Oh, there it is. And it was a little bit far down. But anyway, at least it hadn't hit the EMA band. And the shorts were working kind of better today than the longs were, as you can see, it ended up being a down day. So this is the trade. It was my last trade of the day, and so it ended up being up 11 points gross, and reasonable net. I mean, it's anytime you're up in that range, you're having a good return on your account. Just I would like to be more efficient, but sometimes you just got to trade it a little bit. Alrighty, so any questions on that? or any other questions. By the way, I did get, I don't know if you heard me this morning, I did get, and somebody else got a message that that new version of multi-charts that they had you install, it is available now. I haven't installed it on my system yet. You're not having any problems with it, are you? Is everything working okay? Um, I'm trying to keep my three desktops and three monitors. How can I keep them in the same monitor when I start the next day to be there without trying again to find them? Um, when I start mine, right, when I start each desktop, right, I it starts where I left it. In other words, each desktop of mine starts in the monitor that I set it up in. Yours doesn't. Um, so you have to move it every time. Well, that's not good. I don't have that problem. I wonder. I'm wondering if that's an artifact of the new release. Um, why don't you do me a favor and get a hold of multicharts and tell them about that and see if they have anybody else reporting that that's a problem with the new release, because mine definitely does not do that. When I open up a desktop, it opens it where I left it. Oh, okay. So it actually may be related to the new release. So why don't you report that to multicharts and see if they can confirm it on their end. You shouldn't have to give them any of your indicators or anything like that to do it. They should easily be able to replicate that on their end without without jumping into your system. They can look into your system, but in the past they have asked me to send them some things, and I don't want to share too much with them. Yeah, I have one, two, three. I have four desktops. I have four desktops, and they all start when I say file open desktop. They all start where I left them. They don't move a bit. And each desktop is in a different monitor. Or yeah, do that for me and let me know. And until we get an answer for that, I'm going to tell people to kind of hold off on upgrading to the latest version. And I'll also read on the blog to see if that version buys us anything as well. Sometimes they don't. All right, anything else, Sean? Let me show you. Oops, I was trying to drag that. Well, it won't let me drag that window. Hang on. Let me do it over here. So there's my version. 24200. Build 24200. which is just the previous version from this latest one. Yeah, yeah, that's the latest one. Sometimes they introduce. I think multi-church is pretty good about this, but sometimes they do introduce a little something. But there may be. I don't know of any setting that that controls that because it's supposed to save exactly where it's at. Anything else? Okay. All right. I appreciate that. And anyway, let me know as you can, and we will talk to you again soon.